got this. So what's up, CT? We're here for episode 92. I'm here with Is This Justice? So could you give yourself an introduction and give everybody your socials?
Yes, sir. Is This Justice 860? That should be Instagram and Twitter as far as right now. As far as introduction goes, from Connecticut, from Coventry. Literally grew up right next to UConn. Got into making music probably around the time I was like 15, 16 years old. Started taking it like really seriously when I was about 17. And just never stopped, to be completely honest with you. Just continued to go, work harder, and ultimately ended up in the position I am right now. So it's pretty cool to say that I'm here in Los Angeles working with people I used to look up to. So
Dream come true, man.
yeah, I don't want to say that because I don't want to jinx anything, but one day at a time for sure, most definitely.
So who were your inspirations growing up, both musically and outside of music?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question for me personally, because a lot of people my age, I feel like they get into rap music by listening to a lot of what's popular nowadays, for example. But me, actually, I listened to NWA first before anyone else for some reason. That's what pulled my ear. And then I listened to Tupac and I fell in love. And then once I found Eminem, it was all over, because just the genius of the lyricism and the wordplay and everything like that, it blew me away, and that stoked me up, and I was hooked right there and then. So went down a whole trend of, I would say, more old school artists as a whole. And then eventually it got to the point where obviously I corresponded to what's popular in hip hop now, what's prevalent, but I still obviously have my ties towards what I prefer, which is more old school as a whole. So
Yeah. Interesting, bro. So what was life in Coventry like before music? Was there always the music in the background, or did it just come into the forefront at age 15?
So personally, like, music was always a big part of my life. I can definitely agree with that. I would always say that, like, a deeper meaning or understanding or substance has always been important for just my existence as a whole. And music, at least personally, I feel like a lot of people will agree with this as well and concur, but gives an explanation for that. So before I even could really make the correlation, I was slowly understanding. I was getting a lot of the answers that I was looking for, either philosophically or just realistically in life, through music. And it's not like I didn't grow up in the hood or anything like that where everyone was gangbanging, but I was still trying to figure out who I was as a person, what I was going through, where I lived in compared to certain other people, what my existence was, why I was doing what I was doing. And music really gave me an answer for all of that. So,
And it really shows through your lyricism, because it seems like it's interesting how you like a lot of older rap, because you really try to hone in on what I'd consider one-liners, because every time I hear you rap, there's things that just really stick with me. And I got things pointed out that we'll go into on other songs, but I just have been really impressed with the wordplay that you use. So really talk about how that has been a major part of your music.
so I genuinely appreciate you saying that, first of all. Thank you very much. Because like you said, that is very much what I go for. And it is very inspired by what I would say is the old school. And I wouldn't even necessarily say it's just the old school as well. Even the newer generation that inspires me, like personally, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, are two of my biggest influences, and they're very heavily influenced by the old school as well. So it's funny how hip hop has a way of evolving, and if it evolves in the right way, continue to progress based off of similar ideals, but in new ways. You know what I'm saying? So, I would definitely say that as far as like my focus on words or ideas and trying to be as lyrical as possible, like you said, one-liners, most definitely. It's just I grew up listening to Eminem and Lil Wayne and all these people. And then, like I said, I had the advantage of being able to study them and Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole. So it put me in a position where I felt, not only is this what I'm most interested in, but this is what I'm genuinely best at. So if it's the best of both worlds, why not do what makes you happy?
Of course. And as a lyricist, I really want to like ask you and prod you, what's your opinion on other types of hip hop? Are you a fan of what they would consider mumble rap or other stuff, or do you only like the lyrical stuff?
So I'll definitely say this too. I think my opinion on this topic as a whole is kind of similar to Nas's. Honestly, I actually saw an interview he did when he was, I want to say, performing somewhere on the East Coast. But uh, I don't dislike mumble rap. Like, I know a lot of people who are extremely lyrical might not tend to engage in that sort of music as a whole. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I'm for any kind of rap music continuing to just prosper as a whole and not die off, because every other indigenous form of music in America, from rock and roll to blues to jazz, it's not the prominent form of music like it was anymore. And the only reason why rap has lasted so long is because it's evolved this entire time. You know what I'm saying? So I can definitely understand why certain people might feel a certain type of way, but if there's a way where someone can walk the fine line between both of them, then that's the evolution that we're looking for, that will keep hip hop consistent and will keep it around.
And I think there are some names that are starting to do that right now. Roddy Ricch, The Baby,
Yeah,
Lil Baby, and Corday. Actually, Corday and Roddy Ricch just dropped a song today. And it's really showing that they do have lyricism. Like, they are good lyricists, but
absolutely.
they have that new, I don't even know, is it funk, that new soul that really comes with.
It's like that melodic aspect of music that comes well. Like, a lot of old hip hop didn't necessarily have that, but a lot of new hip hop tends to almost like lean on that compared to it used to lean more on the words that were being presented.
Yeah. And would you say that aspect of melodics makes it a more complete song, or it just makes it a different song?
I would say as a whole, it just makes it more unique and different because of the fact that, like, it really depends on the preference of the listener. And, like, I'll give the example, someone like J. Cole can be extremely intelligent and be a lyricist the whole way through his song while continue to hold a melody and a tone that will catch your ear in a way that certain other artists might not be able to.
Yeah.
But as a whole, like, for the most part, I would say that at least my generation, our generation, they tend to focus more on what's melodic and what's catchy than what might be, substance related. So
Yeah, completely agree. So let's start diving into your music. So before Justified Subjectivity came out, you released a couple pre-releases, and then you released the song Frida Kahlo. So let's go through the pre-releases first, and let's start with Larry Bird.
okay, that was a feature with Henry Az as well. That was actually, we did a collaboration for the Crown project for Kato, the producer. We didn't end up winning, but everyone ended up really liking the song, including Kato, and I got permission to use that on my project. More or less just wanted to enunciate the fact that there are other people, especially coming from the area, New England, that I came from, that are genuinely about lyrics and stand for that from the very basis of what they do compared to what other people might be leaning off towards based on what's going on right now. So that was really cool too, just because of the fact that that's more or less my boss, and that man signed to Juicy J. He's 6 months younger than I am. We just killed a track together. So you look back on that like, wow, like, you can really believe in yourself, even if other might not in the moment. But
Facts, and that was with Henry Az, you said?
yes, and he's from Massachusetts.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw that he was on, I think, 3 tracks on the project.
Yes.
And that was Larry Bird, Chapo's Money, and also Emblem.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So before we get into those two, let's go down to Started Audacity. So what was the
Oh,
process of releasing that?
what was that? Sorry.
What was the process of creating that?
So that's actually the first verse of that song I wrote while I was in Connecticut, still trying to prepare to come out to California and work on my project and everything like that. The second verse of that song I wrote the first day I actually come out to LA. I met Henry for the first time. Met a new producer. His name was Blackbeard. I heard that beat for the first time and was instantly just caught a vibe. So wrote that out. Knew immediately that that's where I wanted to go. Got it recorded, got it mixed. So that was actually the first track I had done. And that was going to be the initial track on my project, not only because the entendre of the idea of started Audacity, but like a lot of up and coming artists, when they starting making music, they use the program Audacity itself. And a lot of people who don't make music might not even know that's a thing that exists. So that in itself was just a clever entendre, I thought, and just opened up my spectrum of the way I approach things compared to how other people might. So
I'm glad that it was a double entendre, because when I first read it, I thought of the program, and I'm glad that it was
okay, perfect. See,
for the program. Yeah,
that makes me happy that you understood that off rip, because of the fact that you do have a background in music, so you can understand that. And that was the hopes that people who do have a background in any kind of musical form will see that and understand. Most artists do actually start Audacity, and even it's even more than a double entendre, because of the fact that it takes a lot of artists to come from a place of, like, I wouldn't say confidence, but almost cockiness to be able to put out music in the first place. You have to believe in yourself to a whole different extent. So you would be starting from a point of audacity. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, no, exactly. It makes so much sense that the concept of believing in yourself so much that you think you're gonna blow up off at the song that you release, it is cocky, but you have
Exactly.
to have that mindset.
But you have to. Exactly. You have to be confident in yourself like that. So
That's how you manifest, right?
exactly. That's what you can do ultimately to try to put things out into the universe. So
Yep. All right, so then you release "Fuck You Up." So let's talk about that song.
I actually co-produced that with my friend. His name is Bryce Beats. He's from Connecticut. Wanted to use a dope sample from Tropic Thunder because we love that movie. Thought it was funny as hell, but it was more or less just I wanted to announce everything that I was capable of outside of just rapping. Like on top of that, being able to produce and being able to just A&R my own music in my own aspect, that I did the whole thing myself. So obviously Chris,
Branches of your tree, basically.
exactly. And that's one of those things where I try to be very humble. I try not to brag or put a lot of stuff in people's faces, but that was one of those things where I wanted to low-key flex and say this is what I'm capable of past what you might think. So
Yep. Awesome. And then ISO, that's the last of the pre-releases. So talk about that.
that one specifically was more or less just, to be completely honest and to be completely real, I always feel that vulnerability is strength, because to be completely honest, there's nothing that isn't left on the table. I've always had anxiety, depression, and bipolar for most of my life. So ISO is just a shortened term for isolation kind of thing. And even in that song, like a lot of the lyrics itself, for the hook primarily, um, it just based around the idea that if we all go crazy, nobody's psycho. If we all go crazy, nobody's in ISO. So it's along the lines of just saying that there isn't a regulative norm that is existence, but people are very judgmental regardless. If everyone just stays open-minded, obviously someone who's crazy is going to go over the top and do something crazy, but if someone's just trying to deal with mental health issues or problems that they might be going through, who are you to judge somebody going through that if you don't know all the details in any way, shape, or form? So
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's very important, especially in 2020. We have to talk about mental health. It's something that's at the forefront now. It's no longer in the back. We have to discuss it and we have to help others. And that's something that I really worked on throughout 2016 through 2020. So I'm really trying to then spread the knowledge of what you have to do to the others, all these listeners, because like you said, it's very important. You don't want to go crazy. You want to stay level-minded and sane. And this is the way to do it. It's regulating your mental health.
exactly. And then it's also reassuring to hear that from somebody else, because of the fact that you might not feel that anyone else can relate to your scenario or your situation or anything like that. So it just might help one more person feel more comfortable in their own skin. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, to be completely honest.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, for example, I still get anxiety before every interview, but I
Yeah.
try to put on a face that shows that I don't have it. And I try to beat that anxiety, because if you let it eat you, then it's no good. But if you sit and you take a deep breath, meditate for a second, every time before my interviews, I do one of those 1 minute meditations, whether it's guided or whether it's myself. And that process makes me feel like, all right, It's just a conversation, and then boom. And that's what I'm trying to be able to get others to be able to do.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, because that is the most important thing, is not only being able to help ourselves primarily in the moment, but then understanding that there are other people who do share similar aspects of, whether it be anxiety, depression, that we could help based off of someone else helped us. So
Yep. My friend Gary actually has a brand, Scattered Thoughts, and he does a lot of stuff with mental health, and he interviews artists and talks about mental health in the podcast. And I've just been a huge fan of everything he does and the mission statement behind his brand. It's just so beautiful to see that there are people that really care about it and are taking initiative to make a difference in others' lives.
and that's the biggest thing too, is like you can care about it, and it can be an aspect or an issue that people want to talk about, but actually acting on it and trying to be proactive towards it is a bigger difference. So
Yeah, and it's not bad to be in the planning stages and not implementing yet. As
no,
long as you have a plan to implement it, that is the big thing.
exactly, you do have to eventually be ready to make this step forward in order to do what you have to do. So
Even if it is an anxiety-inducing situation.
exactly, and that's one of those, it's almost a catch-22 a lot of the time, because of the fact that, like you just said, it might cause someone to feel more anxious to take the step that will ultimately help them not feel anxious. But
Yeah, like every event that I went out to through the breakthrough, it is anxious going and meeting people face to face and having a whole group of creatives and wondering if you're going to get judged. But then you go in there and you realize it's like everybody has the same mindset. They just want to get to their chicken. You know what I mean? And so if you do that, you realize and take a deep breath, like I said before, and then boom, you're all good. And I think everybody always says practice makes perfect, and this is the same thing. You got to practice this.
most definitely agree with that. Most definitely agree with that. And I'll say too, one thing that my father always told me at a young age that kind of stuck with me is just to always remember your worth whenever you walk into a room, regardless of who's in the room and who's at the table when you sit down. Remember what you bring to the table, and never let anyone diminish that or feel like you're detrimental towards your greater good, your health, whatever the case may be, because that's not the reality of the scenario. The reality of the scenario is what you bring forward and what you're able to do. So
Yeah, you want people that are helping you grow, not pulling you back.
exactly.
Great. So then after these pre-releases, you release another single before the project, and that was Frida Kahlo with Zach Kindle, right?
Yes, he's from Connecticut as well. We recorded that song out of the studio in Boston called Phoenix Down, which is a great recording studio. The owner's John Scott, fantastic engineer. He's actually both Jeezy and Little Baby's engineer. Dude's extremely talented. He trained my engineer now. His name is Thanks Luke on social media, but his name's Luke in real life. Very, very talented engineer. So we recorded that track there, and that was just based on, I heard Zach when I got back from LA the first time, and he was extremely talented. Not a rapper at all, very R&B based, but I also knew him back from when I played soccer growing up, and I never knew that he made music either. So it was one of those small world kind of things. And I just kind of brought an idea to him about a track where I kind of wanted to go back and forth in a celebrate Jonah Lucas, Chris Brown type of way, but in our own way entirely. Just kind of have that chemistry towards it. So we came out with Frida Kahlo, and I guess the biggest subject behind that is a girl who's self-absorbed. People might have took that the wrong way necessarily, because of the fact that they were trying to say Frida Kahlo was painting herself more often than not to empower women, which yes, it is true. But from a psychological standpoint, if you're painting yourself 99% of the time, then you might be a little self-obsessed or self-absorbed. She could have painted a bunch of other women all the time, but she chose to do herself, which again, I understand, but there's credibility to what we were saying with that point. So
Interesting. That's a great point.
exactly.
And piggybacking off of what you said with Joyner and Chris Brown, you also have the song Inner Circle off the project, and that is King Los. And on the hook, you say, then I'll put my number on the cover like Joyner, in reference to his 508 project. I don't know that.
Yes, sir.
But So talk about getting King Los on your feature and how much of a momentum shift this was.
So to be completely honest with you, like I said, Henry is more or less my boss, and yes, he signed to Juicy J, so he's very tied into the industry, and that allows me to have a lot more connections than I might necessarily have if that wasn't the case. But when it came to that song specifically, he had nothing to do with getting me that feature, which was really crazy. That was more or less just myself. So King Los put up a post around Christmas time saying that he normally charges probably about 30 racks a feature, if not more than that, depending on it. But he said, if I really fuck with your
track, that, yeah.
yeah, bro, it's all like, he's like, if I really fuck with your track right now, I will literally do a rack and I'll give you a feature. And for me, I grew up literally watching his freestyles on Sway in the Morning, like
ABC,
King Lo. What's up?
the ABC one.
That's what I'm saying. Like every single, it blew my mind. Like literally blew me away. And that's the kind of thing that was the pinnacle. That was the bar to live up to as a lyricist. That was the apex.
Yeah.
And for him to say that, it was very, very, like, my eyes bulged immediately because my friend was the one who tagged me in that post. I only had 1,500 followers at the time. I literally just hit up everyone I knew and I said, if you really believe in me, you're going to tag me in this post right now. And probably about 400, 500 people tagged me in that post. King Los hit me up. He said, send me the track before anything else. Send the track. He listened to it, fucked with it very, very heavily, and said, I'll do it for $1,000, no problem. So that's the only feature I've ever paid for in my entire life, but I have no problem in doing so. And it was one of those things that, like, the biggest reason why I'm honest about, first of all, paying for the feature was because of the fact that, one, it was so low because of the fact we fuck with the track, but two, it was an opportunity to work with one of my idols and my legends that I grew up literally studying.
That is so cool, man.
I appreciate that.
So happy for you because I agree. I remember watching all of King Los's freestyles and his music, his song War. Like, I was a big King Los fan. What was it? Was that around like 2015?
Yep.
Somewhere around there? Yeah.
Yes.
So, huge fan. And that was like, I was listening and what I did was I didn't even look. I just put it on and I was like letting it go. And then I got to the King Los song and he came in and I was like, wow, they both did really, really good on this song. And I have it. I started because I wanted to really talk about that and just express my interest in how well you went bar for bar with somebody, like you said, that is an apex lyricist.
First of all, I couldn't appreciate that more. Second of all, it's funny you say that too, because of the fact that my friend who tagged me in that post immediately, who knew that I could keep up, I sent it to him first after I got the track back, and he called me in tears and literally said, that was amazing because you just went bar for bar with one of our heroes, but he jumped in off of your flow, which was the craziest part. He made it cohesive, and I could not have asked for a better feature for that song from King Los. That was the best. That's what blew me away the most. It was like he could have half-assed it. He could have not tried, but he heard everything I put down, and it made him want to go in and want to snap. So that made me not only freak out, but like I said, it's a definite feeling of validation to be able to keep up with somebody that you look at as the pinnacle, you know? So
you can really tell when someone goes and buys a feature and then that feature is kind of not cohesive with the overall theme of the song. It's just kind of, it might even be a verse that they've pre-recorded and they send out, but it's just really unorganic. And we talked about being organic right before this show, and that I think is the biggest thing in this industry, because you are going to be around a lot of people that are not organic and what they would say, quote unquote, stinks. So if you can be organic and genuine and see people that are also the same and work together with them, that's how you level up.
Exactly, and he turned down so many other features as well. I know that for a fact because he told me based off of the tracks he was listening to. Like I said, it meant a lot for me personally. So
yeah, you can almost consider that, like, I know it's not it's kind of a contest, and like your bars shined more than a couple others.
And I appreciate that.
All right, so let's get into Justified Subjectivity. So this is the name of the first track, and the project is
Absolutely.
J.
One second.
Okay. All right, so let's start getting into the actual conception of the project and why you named it Justified.
Okay. So, there's a bunch of different layers and meanings to it, but I guess the simplest context that I could put it in is when I break down the actual phrase itself, justified subjectivity, it's an oxymoron. So justified is either valid or right or wrong when it comes to the definition. And then subjectivity comes down to what's relative towards either the greater population in comparison to yourself or being stuck in your own head is a definition. So it was just an oxymoron in itself that it's a paradox. Opinion can't, you know what I'm saying? However, if you feel very validated in what you're saying and the reasons why you're saying it, then I almost feel like that's human nature to pretty much factualize our own opinions. So
Yeah, and I've heard exactly what you just said, factualize your opinion. I've heard so many people try to do that over the years, and it really is explained as justified subjectivity, or at least in their brain, it's justified.
there you go. And then the other meaning to it as well was, even on the cover, it's a picture of a brain scan, which was a drug addict who also had depression and bipolar and anxiety, and a picture of my face stuck inside of said brain scan. So it literally reiterates the idea of being stuck inside one's head, whether or not that's right or wrong. So
Awesome. And then you name the intro track, the title track. So why did you choose that?
I chose that just because I felt, being the concept of the project as a whole, it was important to portray the idea behind maybe as to why I feel certain opinions are facts or why I feel certain individuals jump to conclusions without fact checking what they're trying to say. Because even honestly, a lot of the time, I don't feel like I speak off of opinions personally. I feel like I come from a very justified place with whatever I'm saying because I try to look into the information before I speak on it. If I don't know what I'm talking about, then I don't talk about it. It's that simple. And I feel like a lot of people jump into conversations without having any clue whatsoever on anything. So
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. It's no point in butting in when you don't have the information. It is really okay to say, I don't know, let me go and research that and actually do that.
and I would be more okay if people did that instead of throwing out random opinions thinking that it's fact and then criticizing others who actually looked up the information and know what they're talking about. And now it's like you're taking their credibility away as well, which is wrong because of the fact that they're actually right. They did the research, they put in the time, whatever. But that's also just kind of where we're at as a whole in society right now at the moment.
I was going to say right now with social media, it seems we're in like a microwave situation where we need information quick, and it's not the long thought out. It's like, boom, quick.
It's exactly. It's not even we need facts anymore. It's just like everybody wants to voice how they feel, and that's what gets taken as fact. And
It's what becomes the headline.
exactly, and that obviously needs to change, but that's easier said than done. So
Hey, and that's why there are journalists like me who are trying to do that.
exactly, couldn't agree with you more, and I appreciate you for doing so.
So let's move into every angle. That's track 2. So why did you decide to put this so early on in the whole hierarchy of the track list?
Not only because I thought it had more of a commercial sound necessarily, not even just like content wise, like sonically speaking, but just that the idea of following up on justified subjectivity. If you're going to look at life or existence in perspective, you have to look at it from every angle or every perspective. You feel me? So I thought chronologically speaking, it made a lot of sense. It was clever in the way that it was going, but it was also that song specifically, it was more focused in on like a Mona Lisa type girl that I'm sure that we've all had experiences with in lifetimes. Like, I know personally I've known more of them than certain other individuals just based off of the people that I grew up around and was involved around. But it just made sense chronologically in my mind. So
Awesome. And then the following song is Anarchy, Get Amnesty, and that's also featuring Zach.
yes. So that one was big for me because before I dropped anything on Spotify, before I had anything else do any numbers, the one song that I really had like actually pop, or at least what I considered pop at the time, was called Anarchy, semicolon, Get Amnesty. And that was on SoundCloud. And it has over like 30,000 plays right now. It did very well for me as an artist at the time because that was my biggest track. I had never had anything that had any traction like that whatsoever. So I almost wanted to approach that song specifically using a very similar beat, using a very similar cadence and flow context, but just showing this is where I was initially with my older songs, this is where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing with that one. It was almost like a how Logic did Young Sinatra 1, Young Sinatra 2, Young Sinatra 3, or J. Cole did Young Simba, then part 1, part 2, part 3, etc. That was my idea of this is what I want to do for what really kind of speaks my story and my ideals.
Makes total sense. And speaking about Cole, you have the outro as Let Cole Down.
Yes.
And let me ask, is this a follow-up to Let Nas Down by Cole?
Yes, it is. And I'm extremely happy and, again, appreciative that without me even having to say that, you knew that off rip. Not a lot of individuals would make that correlation whatsoever, but it was 100% a follow-up for that song specifically.
Awesome. So what sparked the idea and then made you decide to make it the outro?
So, two things. Mainly, I'd have to say this. I would say, one, I've been through a lot of shit in my lifetime, and I tried to use that as an excuse, but that's also caused me to have a certain relationship with drugs and other substances that a lot of individuals might not have, or to the extent that I did. And I felt like I let Cole down in that aspect because he had the whole KOD album, and that was something that was prominent to me, and I understood and heard it. But I also think there's a million other reasons and perspectives that people don't understand, etc. So from like my own life standpoint, that's what sparked the idea. But from a music standpoint, why I'm choosing to do this in rap, I feel like as a whole, everything that I portrayed in that song was really focused in on, I wouldn't say what mumble rap is, because like I said earlier, I'm not against that or anything, but I have a problem with people portraying themselves as an idea or what they think they want people to see them as compared to who they genuinely are. And I think that, 95 to maybe 98% of the game is like that. It's not who they genuinely are. It's what they want people to see them as. So yes, that's part of marketing and everything like that. But in that aspect, I feel like in the past, prior to kind of coming to these realizations and seeing other people do these things, you just kind of, I wouldn't say ride the trends, but go along with a lot of the stuff that you might not necessarily agree with, or you might not necessarily see eye to eye with certain things, but you still just go along with it again because it's easier not to. But then you kind of grow up and realize maybe that's not who I am as an individual, or maybe this isn't the way that things should be, and people should really be thinking for themselves and asking the right questions. So that's what really stemmed that track, in the same aspect that Cole felt he let his hero Nas down, but he didn't. I don't know if I ever let J. Cole down. I might never know if I let J. Cole down, but I just felt like that was the proper terminology, and that was where the idea really sparked from.
I love it. And then after that, you actually added 2 bonus tracks. The first is Robert Downey Jr. And then can you say the second one? I didn't know how to pronounce it.
Cirque du Soleil.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. So let's speak on Robert Downey Jr. first. Why did you do that?
So that one's funny. I actually wrote that track when I was 18 years old. I recorded.
Go right.
What's
You,
up?
you said you were 22 now, so that's 4 years ago.
Exactly. Yep. I wrote.
Yeah.
Turning 18. Excluding a couple lines of the end of the second verse that I added in to make it more modern and current to what's happening now. But I wrote that song 4 years ago just because, honestly, I always loved Robert Downey Jr. I thought he was the man. And I looked at that kind of format as I wanted to make a banger track, and I figured this was the smartest way that people could relate because people also fuck with Robert Downey Jr. He's a likable dude, and a lot of people know him to be someone who was a crazy party motherfucker who then cleaned up his act and everything like that. And I'm not necessarily saying that's who I am in case, because I still do my shit. I still get fucked up, et cetera, et cetera. But I just genuinely relate to the dude. I always thought he was cool. I always loved his charisma. And I just like the idea as a whole that I could make a bunch of references based off of his career and life choices that, again, I related to in my own path, in my own life.
So how was it when you were watching Endgame and you saw that final?
I'm not even gonna lie. Right before we went to go see it, Henry AZ actually was on his phone and said, "Yo, I'm about to tell you something that's gonna make you cry." And I said, "Don't tell me." And he told me that Iron Man died before we went to see it, and I was really upset, like genuinely broken. And then when I saw it, I was also extremely upset. But you all know what? I look at it as it's pretty cool to me in the aspect that they made, I think it was 24 movies and made so much money off of that. And honestly, none of that would have been possible without Robert Downey Jr. in the aspect of after the first Avengers movie, he was getting paid like $20 million a movie and everyone else was only getting paid somewhere between like $3 and $6 million a film. He said, if everyone else doesn't get paid the same amount of money as I do, we're all going to leave. And you're not going to be able to rebrand the whole entire cast. So make sure everyone gets what they deserve or you're going to lose the whole franchise. So then from then on, everyone got paid the same amount of money as him. So I look at that as very genuine. I look at that as something that I can hopefully emulate one day. But
That's a boss move.
exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. That is the definition of a boss move.
Oh yeah, so let's talk about the second track.
Sure. That one was just more a basis of where my life was compared to where my life is now. And the idea and seeing how a lot of people who might have acted a certain way in the past change and react based on how you are doing in this current moment, whether it be you're succeeding, you're not doing as well, and whether it's you reacting to them or them reacting to you kind of ideal. That was more the premise of that one.
Okay.
So same. I just use the terminology. There's a lot of like weird shit and like twisting and flipping and all that kind of shit and what Cirque du Soleil actually is. So that's why I catch you on the flip side, like Cirque du Soleil, that kind of stuff. So it made sense to me when I came at it from a conceptual standpoint.
Makes total sense. And what are your streams at now? Because you said it was at 215.
Yep, just checked it earlier. It's just under 220.
That's so far. And for those, we're talking thousands. We're not talking.
Yeah, talking 1,000 here. 220K.
Bro, I'm so happy for you. That's so great.
Likewise, it's one of those crazy things. Honestly, genuinely, like I have a lot of people I'd like to thank for that, and we'll get there when we get there. But it's one of those things that you always dream and hope on, and as it's happening, I still can't fully process it to the fullest extent. It's gonna be months from now when I like genuinely absorb it up to the fullest extent. But as of this moment, though, I still couldn't be happier. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, bro, that's great. So let's get into those fun questions. The first one was, if you could collaborate with any artist, dead or alive, who would they be and why? And we'll add the producer in too.
Okay. I would say this. I would say personally, I'm going to give you two answers to this because I genuinely feel. One would be Mac Miller, and I would probably have him also produce the track as well because that would just mean a lot to me. I mean, I have Most Dope tatted on my stomach and shit. That was one of my idols growing up. So, like, The other collaboration I would probably do would be, and I know this is extremely controversial, but I think this is the right way to go about it. I wanted to get Biggie and Tupac on the same song, with probably having like Dr. Dre producing it.
Oh, wow.
I think that would be extremely cool, just on the fact that for so many different reasons I can't even begin to get into, obviously, just because they had such a crazy social dynamic between them that ended so badly. But if that was ever able to, obviously it can't be rectified because of what happened, but if it could have been rectified in real life, that would have been ideal. And that would have been something that I'm sure everyone as, fans would have preferred as well, but that's just not what happened. But in an ideal scenario, it'd be amazing to work with such contrasting styles, literally such contrasting viewpoints, and then having it on a Dre beat would be unreal. It'd be beyond platinum just off the bat.
To just top it off, that's cherry on top of Dre production.
Exactly. Anything by Dr. Dre alone, people don't understand it, but it will go platinum solely based off the production. Like, Dre won't let the track be whack. He'll make sure the artist follows through and makes it amazing. But just off the beat alone and the energy and the vibe that it brings, the song will go platinum.
Facts. He's not just the producer. He's like an executive producer, too. He makes
Exactly. He can almost see an artist's potential or a certain song idea or concept before an artist can a lot of the time. And he can help bring that out of them before they even knew they were capable of it, which is pretty cool. I always found that extremely interesting.
Yeah, facts. I agree completely. All right, so we're going to get into the next one, which was, if you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say and why?
I would say that Google has the answer, but we don't have the question. And what I mean by that is, think for yourself. We are very dependent on technology because of it. It's such an amazing tool that we have in our lives that we've never had before, and there's never been a faster revolution than the tech revolution. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're moving in the right direction if we're not thinking for ourselves anymore, thinking creatively like we used to be.
Yeah. Just give me 1 second. Back to recording. Perfect. So the next thing I was going to ask is, what's next for you musically?
So I do have a single I'm about to drop. I do have a feature on it. I'm not going to announce the feature yet. It's going to be a surprise. But the title of the single is called Sideshow. It's very dope. Very excited for it. After that, I do have an EP coming and then another full project hopefully coming after that. And this should be within the next 6-7 months. So everything's going to be relatively soon to follow up everything that's already dropped.
That's great. You're going to keep all your fans full, basically.
Exactly. My idea hopefully is to continue to keep everyone entertained, keep everybody listening to what I'm doing, focused on what I'm doing, and then have my discography be able to speak for itself so that I can maybe take 8 months to work on a project and no one questions it. No one has a problem with that because they know the end result is going to be worth it by far. So they'd have no problem waiting for it.
They're more excited with anticipation for the project than like mad that you're not dropping.
Exactly. So obviously you have to earn that, and that's something that's very real. But I hope I can get to that point. I hope that just based on I try to let the music speak for itself as much as I can. So hopefully the music that I've already dropped and then my work ethic and what I'm going to continue to drop will allow me to do so.
Perfect, bro. All right, so this is going to transition into our next question, where we ask, where do you see yourself in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years? And we'll start out with 1.
In 1 year, I see myself still as either an extremely successful independent artist or an even more successful artist that has already signed a deal.
Awesome. 5.
5 years, I will probably be on the ending terms of my second deal is what I'm thinking. And then 10 years from now would be, ideally, I'd like to start my own label. obviously be the boss, be CEO, everything like that. So
Nice. And then what about 10? I know
yeah,
it's a far distance away.
that would ideally, like I said, if I could start my own label, be able to put on the next generation of artists that I would have looked for in myself, kind of thing. That would be, I feel like, my ultimate purpose for why I'm here outside of making the music that I do. Because I know how many dope, amazing artists there are out there that get overlooked every single day because that might not necessarily be what labels or A&Rs or whoever are looking for at the moment right now. But I can still listen to it and say, wow, it's pretty fucking amazing and profound music that deserves to be heard, you know? So if I can help like that, then I really serve my purpose outside of just trying to be here for myself as well.
It's a beautiful thought. Awesome. My last question, bros. Are there any more shout outs you want to give before we end the show?
Absolutely. I wanted to shout out Henry AZ on IG at who is Henry AZ. I want to shout out Zach Kindle at Zach Kindle. I want to shout out Luke Nijelski on IG at Thanks Luke. I want to shout out Kosh, producer, fucking fire. Literally executive produced most of my projects. So at Kosh made it. I want to thank out my boy Bryce Beast, Chris. Love you, bro. It's day one. Already know. Trying to think if there's anyone I'm excluding off the top of my mind right now. I'm missing in the moment. No, it should be good for the moment. But if I miss anyone, I apologize. I know it's nothing but love, and I already got you. But also huge shout out to Phoenix Down and King Los as well. But
awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you for coming on. And this ends episode 92. Thanks, CT. We'll see you next week.